All right. I just want to acknowledge the presence of a few people. We have a family here all the way from Europe, from France. Thank you very much. They're visiting Calgary and they decided to be here today. For somebody to do that, I appreciate it. I have my friend Amy. Amy, thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up. And thanks everybody. I appreciate it. Now, we'll talk about mindset in a different way because I know when she mentioned changing your thought, they could come in your head like, how do I change my thought? You just say it so easily. But we'll go into some form of studies. We'll be in a classroom right now. We'll break down everything to the bottom. So pay attention. When it comes to your mind can create a heaven for you and your mind can create hell for you. It all comes down here. I once went to an event. I was invited. And I think when they called me over, it was a business event. I told the people, I said, welcome to heaven. And some of them thought I needed to be in a mad people's house, that I was crazy. But the whole point is, who just read the news a few days ago? Calgary showed up again as one of the most livable cities in the world. A few days ago. I'm not talking about last year, a few days ago. This city has been one of the most livable cities in the world consecutively for so many years. I'm talking about the world, not in Canada. Calgary. And so when I told these people, welcome to heaven, it's because how you see Calgary depends on how your mind is wired. You don't see with your eyes, you see with your mind. You get it? And now if you think that on this planet you're living in one of the most beautiful cities in terms of livelihood and happiness, there is no other place. If there is a heaven on earth, you are there right now. There's no other better place. And so for you to have the privilege to live in such a city and not be the best version of you, struggling to pay bills every day and night, checking your bank account is going, and at some point the bank sends you a notification, you're below $100, you're like, shit, right? It means there is something lacking. Because if we did not have it where we were and came over to here, to this place, and still struggling, I truly know that if you switch something here, everything around you will change. Now, who remembers this verse that says, as a man thinketh, so is he? We've all heard it. Jesus was more than a scientist. When he said, as a man thinketh, so is he. That's an absolute truth. What works up here is what materializes in your world. When you know that, you will focus on you, because once you change how you think, everything else changes. And the biggest thing is, how do I change how I think? I know you saw it so easily, change how I think. How do I change how I think? It's like me trying to tell you to think about what you are thinking. That can be hard. How do you think about what you're thinking? Right? But when I finish this, if you can just open your mind to see what I'm explaining, it will be challenging. You did not come here today to hear something that you know already. It wouldn't make sense. You didn't come here to hear something that is familiar or that is comfortable. So some of what I will say will not be comfortable. But I want you to be open-minded and receptive to what I'm going to say. I have this picture. Before I go to that picture, let me tell you something about a personal story. My mom. When I came to Canada and started making some money, I decided to retire my parents. Build them a good house in the village, everything, solar panels, everything. And I put them there and they should not work anymore. Told my dad, I'll send you money. You know, when you send money from here, even if it's $100, it's good money back there. So I tell him, get up in the morning, go have a drink with your friends, and when it's finished, let me know. I can retire you. The biggest problem was that my mom found life so boring. Even when I told her, you have a beautiful house, I'll send you money, just live life. She was not trained to live life. She had been working on a farm to sustain the family, and every time she went to that farm, she would be like, oh, this suffer, oh, my uncle suffer. She was suffering. That's the impression she had. She thought that if she had more money, she would live like the rich people. But she was not trained for that life. And what happened is when I built that house and retired them, she started developing health problems because she wasn't working like before. And what I had to do is get a farm for her so she can go back and work. But this time I had to make her understand that your mind is torturing you. When you worked on that farm before, you complained, and that's why you suffered. But now you're working on that farm because it's needed for your health and your mental stability. And so that shift in that mind made her to work on that farm happily. She didn't see it as suffering anymore, but it's the same farm. So your mind can create hell or can create heaven for you based on how you see things. And that leads me to this picture here. What does this tell you when you see this? I'll start with you. She's smiling. I know she connects with that picture. What do you see when you see that picture?
I see like they eat grass.
Eat that?
Yeah.
Good. What do you see? Yeah. Right? That's what he sees. I need somebody with a different perspective. Yeah. What do you see?
I think that there could be an epidemic if they don't eat crops.
Because usually when they come in large quantities, they destroy the place, eat all the greens and stuff. Do you know why they have different answers? Because their brains and the previous knowledge they have makes them to see it differently. Somebody from my country, when they see this, they produce saliva. They salivate. It's food. It's very delicious. But if you were to say this to another person in a different area, they would like, what? How could people eat that? Right? And that's the same insect, but we're seeing it differently. And how we see depends on how our brains are wired. That's why I brought that picture to demonstrate to you how you don't see with your eyes, you see with your mind. If your mind is not trained to see opportunity, to see abundance in this life, to see money around you, you will work on a job so hard you will never see the money in your bank account. So this is a process of rewiring the brain. And that's what we're going to be talking now, because when we talk about changing how you think, the question is, how do I change my thought? I'm going to show you a demonstration how you can change your thought, but it can only happen if you're open to trying it. Remember, everything I'm teaching here, I want you to go back and test it for yourself. And maybe someday you will be on the stage teaching other people too. Good. So I call it how to create a new future by reverse engineering your thought process. When Jesus said, as a man think, I'm sorry for the non-Christians. When I say Jesus, it's because I studied the Bible as a religious book and as a philosophy book as well. So it's not because we're in a Christian or religious place, but I like quoting this because some people can relate to it. And apart from him saying that, truly as a man thinketh, so is he. And I say man, I mean man, woman, whatever you identify yourself to be. So we're going to look at the process of thought. And when we look at how thought is created, it will give you clues on how to change the way you think. We all have what we call universal traits. Everybody has a head here. That's natural. Everybody has 2 ears. Everybody has 2 hands. We call that gross anatomy. We all share the same gross anatomy. But when you look at somebody's brain, we all have brains, and those brains have 2 lobes. There's the frontal, there's the temporal lobe, and all what? What's Nina, our registered nurse? She knows better, right? Now, the difference between our universal traits, universal traits means the things we share as a community, and what I call individual traits depends on how your brain is wired. That's why we saw that insect differently. How your brain is wired is what determines how you think. Because science has shown that when you learn or do something new, you create new connections in your brain instantly. So those neurons keep connecting and disconnecting at the same time. Every time you learn or do something new, they connect in a particular way, in a pattern. And the only way you can keep that pattern is by repeating that thing you just learned over and over so that it solidifies. If you learn this today and you disappear and you never think about this, it goes back to the old way of doing things. In our last conference, we had this small exercise. I want everybody here to fold your arms. Just fold your arms. Just fold your arms. Yeah. Now, I want you to note, did you put the right hand on top or the left hand on top? Yeah, that was spontaneous, right? You did not have to think about it.
You know why? Because you've been doing it like that for so long. Now I want you, no, keep it. I want you to do the reverse. Fold your arm the other way. Does it feel awkward? It feels awkward. You know what you just did? You just touched the part of your brain that you had never touched. The actual part of your brain you use is less than 1/100. Some scientists say 1/10, but I think it's 1/100. There's a lot of it that you don't use. And every time you do something differently, if you take this thing with your right hand, every time you do it with the other hand, you're touching parts of your brain. You're creating new connections. If you repeat them, they stay. If you don't repeat, they go back to where they were. So that's what creates those individual traits, how our brain neurons are connected. And how these brains are connected is based on something that is so strong I call culture. We all come from different backgrounds. And that's the reason why people from a particular country do things in a different way. That's the reason why people in that country, from a particular region in that country, do things in a different way. And that those things they do affect how they think. We've known some tribes that have a lot of businesses and make more money, particular tribe. And the other tribe is not business-minded. And people who grow in this area, they absorb that culture. And it wires their brain in a different way. So culture has a big impact. I'm very careful when saying this because we are in a community where culture is so important to many people. But I'm going to show you something about culture. Now, culture is based on our environment. Because every place you go, and that's why people from South Sudan have a particular culture. People from Cameroon have a particular culture that is different from those in Ghana. So culture basically depends on the environment where you grow. And that environment depends on how the people survived in the past, how their history was. Everything about that environment is what builds the culture. When you look at culture, culture embodies so many things. Culture comes with customs, traditions, language, survival skills, habits. It also comes with attitude, belief system, history, art, and social structure. All these make what we call a culture. And we know that the culture is what affects how your brain is wired. And how your brain is wired affects how you think. That's why when you saw that insect, somebody thought about food, somebody talked about an epidemic, somebody talked about a disaster. That little guy saw an insect that jumps around. That's all he could see because that's the experience he's had based on the environment he's had. And that's the culture he's building for himself. Now, when you look at this and you can accept with me that all these things affect how your brain is wired, which affects how you think. This culture is based on the past of your life. Every culture is based on the past. Do you agree? A culture depends on how our great-grandparents did things when they survived this earth. Now, if you're living your life based on that culture, you will wonder why things turn to go in cycles and you don't create new things in your life. It's because your way of thinking, the way your brain is wired, is based on the culture, which is based on the past. The only way you can change how you think is to do something very strange. To design your culture and the way you live your life and your habits and your system to be based on the future that you want to create. And this is where I have a lot of problems, especially with people from my place, because we have a system that aims at preserving the culture at all costs. Now, if your goal is to preserve a culture, you will either get extinct or maybe be left behind. That's a reality. Now, when we go to McDonald's and all these shops, do you see new menus coming in almost every year, and every summertime you see they keep tweaking burgers, tweaking this, bringing new this, trying new drinks and stuff? That's a culture that is based on evolution and looking at where you're going. So in reality, if you want to change how you think, just create the life you want to live mentally. You don't have to know how you want to get there. And now, see how you can shift your current culture, which is based on your habits and your attitude, to reflect that future that you are going to. Not a habit or a lifestyle that is based on the past. Unfortunately, people get so stuck to doing things the way it has been done that it gets so hard for them to accept this. But the reality is, if you can just try this for a year or two, it doesn't take much to shift your financial life, honestly. It can take 3 to 4 years of managing your life like a business, being aware and doing. Like, we're going to get to the financials after the break. If you can do that for 2, 3, 4 years, you can liberate your life and your family from financial hurdles. And from there, you will just keep growing. It took me 4 years. But I know that it took me 4 years because I was learning from scratch and everything. And even the same thing with my home care business. I tell people, I did it from scratch. If I teach you, you will do better than I did. Because I'm teaching you with all the experience and the difficulties and the ones that did not work. It takes just a couple of years. And you can imagine that somebody will work for a paycheck of $5,000 for their whole lives, but will never be able to generate $5,000 in residual income that can liberate them for the rest of life so they can enjoy life. So take this, try it. I want you to go and see what aspects of me is holding me back to how things have always been done. How can I start changing things to reflect the life that I want to build? Sometimes I tell people about creating a business. I tell people your business doesn't have to succeed. I want you to register a business, print a business card, and put your name there and write manager at the bottom. And see how it starts changing things here. You're gonna wake up like a manager. It doesn't matter if you don't have money, your money is not coming in. It starts changing things, and that's what I want you to do here mentally. Picture the life that you want to create and see how can I change my habits, my attitude, my way of doing things so that it's not stuck in the way things have always been done. Unfortunately, we have groups and organizations and social gatherings that are aimed at maintaining the culture. I come from Cameroon. We have dishes and meals. We have some called achu, some called ekwang and stuff. If you were to cook that food and tell my grandmom that I want to change this a little bit so it can be better, she will kill you. She will say, no, you have to do it the way it has always been done. You get it? So that's a fixed way of approaching life. It's not about food, but when you start opening your mind to tweaking things a little bit, doing things a little bit, exploring, trying, that's how you evolve and you grow. And that's the way you change how you think. I just want to summarize this now. How you think will always determine how you feel. When somebody tells you some bad news and you start thinking about it, you start having goosebumps, you start sweating, you start getting mad, you start feeling bad. It came from the thought of that thing. You can think about something as good or bad and it will immediately affect how your body, your whole physiology is connected to your brain. So how you think will always affect how you feel. How you feel will determine how you act in life. If you took the action to came here today, some of you had never seen me before, correct? Some of you saw my video on Facebook or YouTube or something. Who saw me on Facebook or YouTube? Good. And you watched that video and it made you to think about it. And you saw something meaningful in that video. And then you decided because of your thought and how you felt about it, you took the action to come here today. So your thoughts create your feelings. Your feelings determine how you act in life. And how you act and feel creates what we call personality. And this is something interesting because society has created personality types. And when you read some books, they group people into different personality types. My problem with that is that once you identify yourself in a personality group, you become boxed in a group. If you feel like this is always me, when somebody says, you know me, I'm always like this. But the reality is, your personality directly creates your personal reality. That's the truth, that's a fact. And so if you wanted to change your personal reality, you just need to reverse engineer this and go back to your thoughts and start changing them. When you start changing them, you will realize that you have the power to go from one personality type to another to another. You're not supposed to be fixed in a group. I've seen people who've gone from being introverts, afraid of everything, to being bold and talking on stages. You have that power if you let yourself to start trying new things, to test your mind. I want you to test your mind from today. Go picture something, write on a board. I have a power I use. When I talk to non-Christians, I don't like using things that offend them. I tell them that I have this power that I've been using. I don't know how it works. I don't even want to know how it works, but I know it works and I'm just going to keep using it. I want you to start from today and use that power that you all have. It's called mind power. That's where God works. If you create a vision, a picture of what you want to do, you don't have to know all how it's going to happen. Once you hold that thought and get into it and believe into it, it will start affecting how you think. You have to let yourself. Because sometimes we have thoughts, we have feelings, and we suppress them immediately. And sometimes we are in environments that suppress those thoughts and feelings for us. Because if you're surrounded by people who believe in maintaining a culture, the moment you go and cycle yourself, you go back into it and you wonder why your life goes in cycles and cycles and cycles. So this is the structure on how to change your thought system. Try to do something that stretches you out of that regularity, that comfort zone all the time. The more you do that, you open your brain to being receptive to learning things. Okay, good. So how does this connect to your money, your finances? And I wrote here that your current life situation, including your finances, is based on how you have been thinking. So the reality is your life right now and everything in your life, including your relationships, your job, everything depends on how you had been thinking. Unfortunately, some of those choices were made by other people for you. But I want you to take full responsibility, complete responsibility, and shift how you change things now, because that's how to build your future. So your life and everything is how you've been thinking. To change your finances, you have to be willing to replace your thoughts, your thought process with new ones. This means redesigning a culture. Redesigning a culture. I'm not saying you go back to your village and tell them how to do things. I mean your personal culture, your philosophy, your principles, how you live your life, how you wake up in the morning. I just said, welcome to heaven, which means this is one of the most beautiful cities on earth. When you wake up in the morning, how do you feel waking up in one of the most beautiful cities on earth? Are you going to complain about gas prices, living in one of the most beautiful cities? Personally, I decided to tell people that, one, I'm never going to complain about bills. Everybody complains about bills, right? Has complaining about bills ever made your bills to go down? It has never, right? Everybody complains about gas prices. Has that ever changed the price at the gas station because people complained about it? No. It's a mindset thing. When you join the crowd, you complain about bills, you cry paycheck to paycheck. Slowly it develops a personal culture. How can you develop a way of doing things that change your personal culture? Because it's by changing personal cultures that we change a community. When I talk about the government, everybody thinks the government changes people's lives. But if you look at the community and the study of a community, it starts with an individual that combines with another, who comes together with another person to create a family. That's the basic unit of a community. So we change individual cultures. If I succeed in changing this guy, he will affect his family. His family, which includes the kids, will be changed. So if you have wealthy people, they create wealthy families. And wealthy people, I mean wealthy mindset. A few wealthy families create a rich neighborhood, right? A rich neighborhood leads to a rich community. And you have a rich city. And you need just a few rich cities or towns to have a rich country. So I look at it from a bottom to top approach, not a top to bottom approach. And that's why we're trying to do here. We're individuals trying to change the way our brains think. Just go today, make a list of 10 things you will not complain about, especially things that are beyond your control. Because when you complain about the weather, does it change that sun shining or going down? No. When you complain about gas prices, but those are things that send signals to your subconscious, because your subconscious does not know the difference between reality and something you're just creating or copying from other people. They keep sending to your signal, to your subconscious, that the world is hard, it's difficult, this is a bad world, this is a bad country, this is a bad government. And you dance into that negativity area, which just creates more of it in your life. That's the thing I want to do, to create that small change. You remember my mom? She worked on that farm and she suffered and she cried and she complained. But now she's working on the same farm happily and grateful and cheerful. You can work on a job happy and grateful and gain the benefits of it, rather than complain and then suffer and then think that your manager or your boss is using you to grow money, to make his money. It's all up here. Right? Good. So I'm not going to take a lot of time because I can talk forever. Like I say, what I'm going to be sharing here today is a tip of what I need to share. Because when you know these things, you cannot sit with it. And someday you will be on the stage someday teaching somebody this too. Honestly, you cannot stay with it because you know that it's so easy to become financially free. If people only knew what it takes, they will become financially free. Financially free does not mean starting a business. It does not mean quitting your job. I'm going to show you how you can keep a job, redesign your life and your finances, and do that for 4 years and end up having enough money saved, paying your debt, and being financially free. And now you go to work because you love to serve human beings. You love what you do, not because you're working to pay bills. There's a difference between working and the bills are waiting for you and working because you love that job. And you can tell the boss, I quit today. And you don't have to worry because your finances are good. That's how I see a job to be. It should be something that we do because we all need to serve people and people have to serve us. That's my perspective.